The Owl Who Was Afraid of the Dark, Part 4. I wonder if your predictions were correct yesterday when I asked you to think about what Plop might talk to the young lady about. Can you remember his mum said, "There's a young lady down there. Why don't you go and talk to her?" So let's find out. Plop peered down through the leaves. Standing a little way from the tree was someone wearing shiny black boots, a bright red fur coat with a matching hat, and what looked like a white beard. "That's not a young lady," shrieked Plop. "That's Father Christmas." And he fell off his branch in such a hurry that he forgot either to shut his eyes or to take a deep breath. He landed quite well, considering, but lost his balance at the last moment and toppled forward on his face. A gentle hand picked him up and set him the right way up again. "Oh, you poor darling," said a sweet young voice. "Are you all right?" Plop looked up quickly. That voice didn't sound quite right. It wasn't a white beard, it was long blonde hair. "You're not Father Christmas at all," he said crossly, "and I came down here specially." "I'm terribly sorry," said the young girl, "and I'm not a darling, I'm a barn owl." "I tell you what," the Father Christmas lady said, "may I draw a picture of you in my nature sketchbook? I haven't got a barn owl in it." "Me?" said Plop. "You mean really me?" "Yes, please. Perhaps you could pose on that low branch for me." Plop fluttered up to the branch and stood stiffly to attention. The Father Christmas lady sat on a log and began to draw. "I always carry my sketchbook about with me in case I see something interesting," she said. The interesting barn owl drew himself up proudly like a soldier in a sentry box, but not for long. The young lady looked up from her drawing to find that her barn owl had completely disappeared. "Can I see?" said a small voice down by her boot. Plop was jiggling up and down trying to see what was on the pad. "There's not much to see yet," she said, "but all right, you can look." Plop looked. "I'm not bald like that," he said indignantly. "I haven't had time to get you properly dressed," said the young lady, "and you've only given me one leg. I'm afraid a bald one-legged barn owl is all there's going to be unless you keep still." Plop really tried very hard after that, and he only got down 3 or 4 times to see how she was getting on. He could hardly believe his eyes when it was finished. "Is that really me?" he said. "I look just like Daddy. Well, almost." "Yes, that's really you," she said. "I keep one end of the book for animals and birds that come out in the daytime and the other end for night creatures. I've put you with them, of course." "Oh," said Plop, of course. All the most interesting ones are at your end," the young lady went on. "I think dark is fascinating." Tell me about it," said Plop. Well, it was too late now to tell her that she'd got him at the wrong end of the book. "Hop up then," said the young lady, holding out a finger and taking Plop onto her lap, "and I'll show you what good company you're in. Look, here are some badgers." Plop looked at the big black and white animals with stripes down their noses. "Funny faces they've got." "That's so they don't bump into each other in the dark," explained the young lady. "They can't see very well at all." She turned over the page. "Ah, now I think these are the most fascinating night creatures of all. Bats." "You've got it all the wrong way up," said Plop. The Father Christmas lady laughed. "No, I haven't. That's how bats like to be when they're not fluttering about, hanging upside down by their feet." "Go on," said Plop. "Yes, really, and do you know, if you were a baby bat, your mother would take you with her wherever she went, clinging to her fur. You'd get lots of rides." "Oh, I'd like that," said Plop. "Yes, but when you got too big to be carried, do you know what your mother would do? She'd hang you up before she went out." "Hang me up," said Plop. "Upside down?" "That's right. Now let's see what else we can find." She turned a few pages. "Yes, here we are." Oh, Plop was not with her. He was rocking backwards and forwards on the low branch like one of those little wobbly men you can push. Every now and then he went a bit too far and had to waggle his wings to keep his balance. "What are you doing?" asked the young lady. "I'm trying to be a bat," said Plop, "but what I don't understand is how they begin. I can't get upside down." "Perhaps it would be easier to be a hedgehog," said the young lady. "When they're frightened, they roll themselves into a ball. Look, here's a picture of one." Plop hopped back onto her knee and inspected the hedgehog. There's Plop looking very interested in her story. His feathers could do with a bit of fluffing up, he said. Those aren't feathers, they're prickles. Very useful they are too. A hedgehog can jump off quite a high fence without hurting himself because he makes himself into a prickly ball and just bounces. Very useful, said Plop. I wish I had prickles. He jumped off her lap and tried to roll himself into a ball. It was very difficult. I don't seem to have enough bends, he said. Suddenly he stopped rolling about and stayed still, listening. Then he rushed back to the young lady's lap and tried to bury himself in her coat. What's the matter? She said. There's a funny noise, he said, over there. The young lady listened. There was a busy, rustling sound coming from the dry leaves under the big tree. Why, I do believe it's a hedgehog, she said. Yes, look, here it is. Plop peeped cautiously over the edge of her lap. A tiny pointed snout pushed its way through the leaves, and then a small, round creature scuttled across the lawn in front of them. There's a little hedgehog there. They never bother to move about quietly, the young lady whispered, because they know nobody would want to eat anything prickly. Is he sure? Said Plop. I'm so hungry I could eat anything. The hedgehog stopped dead and rolled himself into a tight little ball. He must have heard you, the young lady said. What a thing to say. Well, it's true, Plop said. I'm starving. Oh, of course. You'll be going hunting with your parents now that it's getting dark, won't you? I was forgetting you're a night bird. The night bird looked down at his toes. Well, I won't keep you, she went on, except would you mind doing something for me before you go? I would like to hear you screech. Plop didn't mind at all. He stuck out his chest and gave the most enormous eek he could possibly manage. Gorgeous, said the young lady. Plop bobbed his funny little bow and then he took off and circled around, eeking for all it was worth. The young lady waved and then with one final eek of farewell, Plop flew back up into the landing branch. Well, said his mother, the Father Christmas lady, you were right. It was a lady. She says dark is fascinating. And what do you think, Plop? I still don't like it at all. But what do you think? The lady drew a picture of me. Well, that's very special, isn't it? Nobody has ever put me in a picture. And she says my screech is gorgeous. She does she? I wondered what all that noise was about. Where's Daddy? Out hunting. Oh, jolly good. I could eat a hedgehog. I wouldn't recommend it, said his mother. Dark is wonderful. That was nice, said Plop when he'd gulped down what his father had brought. What was it? A shrew, said his father. I like shrew, said Plop. What's next? A short pause, said Mrs. Barn Owl. Let your poor Daddy get his breath back. All right, said Plop, but do hurry up, Daddy. Shrews are nice, but they're not very big, are they? This one feels very lonely all by itself at the bottom of my tummy. It needs company. I don't believe there is a bottom to your tummy, said his father. No matter how much I put into it, it's never full. Oh well, I suppose I'd better go and hunt for something else to cast into the bottomless pit. That's what fathers are for, said Plop. Wouldn't you like to go hunting too, Mummy? It would be a nice change for you. Thank you very much, said Mrs. Barn Owl. What you really mean is that you won't have to wait so long between courses, but I will certainly go if you don't mind being left. Why don't you come with us, said his father. Then you wouldn't have to wait at all. Plop looked round at the creeping darkness. No, thank you, Daddy, he said. I have some more remembering to do. Righto, said Mr. Barn Owl. Ready, dear? Plop's parents took off together side by side, their great white wings almost touching. Plop sat outside the nest hole and watched them drift away into the darkness until they melted into each other and then disappeared altogether. It took quite a long time because the stars were coming out and Plop could see a long way by their light with the owl's eyes. He remembered what his mother had said about dark never being black. It certainly wasn't black tonight. It was more of a misty grey, and the sky was prickled all over with tiny stars. Drat, said a voice from somewhere below Plop. Plop stared and peered through the leaves. There was a man with some sort of contraption set up in front of him, standing there scowling up at the cloud which had hidden the moon. What was he doing? Plop shut his eyes, took a deep breath, and fell off his branch. He shot through the air like a white streak and landed with a soft bump. "Heavens!" cried the man. "A shooting star!" "Actually, I'm a barn owl," said the shooting star. "What's that you've got there?" And we'll find out what the man has got tomorrow. At the beginning, Mr. Barn Owl brought Plop something to eat, and he said it was a shrew, which didn't really fill Plop up much at all. Can you see if you can find out what a shrew is? Let me know when you've found out the answer.